Hey, Sophie. What I'd like to do is I'd like to propose something for the Second Life Environmental Corps. It's a class in coral reef restoration. Now, the class will be open to all certified divers of a level of your choosing. Uh, and what you're looking at now is the current condition of many coral reefs around the world. Notice the white color. You're not looking at sand. What you're looking at is the dead skeletons of what were once thriving, living coral reefs. Now, here's some footage I shot myself on a recent dive trip. Uh, this simply isn't the result of rising seawater temperatures. I mean, that's part of it, but it's not the whole picture. Freshwater runoff, chemical fertilizers, pollutants, man-made stressors, and actually a current disease state also contribute to coral reef destruction. I see it in my own personal dives all the time. So let's not lose hope, though, because there is a solution. Now, it was once thought that coral reef restoration was a fantasy, but in recent years, scientists have discovered different types of native coral that are resistant to temperature changes, desalination changes, changes in pH, and are disease resistant. Now, what I'd like to propose for the Second Life Environmental Corps is to teach a class maybe once every other month or maybe even once a month if there's enough demand that shows how modern science is renourishing our coral reefs, and then have a practical application where divers can go out and actually replant a dying coral reef. Now, our class would be in about three parts and hopefully lasting less than 2 hours. Our class would begin with a tour of the lab where a process by the name of microfragmenting would be demonstrated. Now, microfragmenting is taking basically staghorn coral and cutting it into little tiny pieces and then gluing those tiny pieces onto small ceramic dishes and then placing them into gently flowing seawater to mature and to be transplanted to a coral forest underwater later on. That's for further development. Of course, that takes a little time for that coral to grow. Now, cutting the coral pieces, what they found actually stimulates the growth. These microfragmented pieces of coral actually grow 25 times faster than the same coral in nature. I mean, really, 25 times faster. Basically, you can do in a lab in 2 years what would take nature 75 to 100 years to do. And this isn't just only in a lab. Once those pieces of staghorn coral are translated into the wild, they'll continue to grow at the same 25% faster rate than in nature if tended to properly. Now, that's part one. Part two of the class comes in. The students are going to learn in a classroom how to use hammers to scrape algae and other contaminants off the coral bed, going over it with a wire brush, continue to clean that process, and then how to transplant the staghorn coral onto the dead reef. Um, Part three of the class is the practical part. We're going to get in our dive gear, and the students are going to descend down to what will be a coral forest, and that's basically a giver. We're going to have it look sort of like what you're seeing here, and that will be a giver that'll give students a piece of staghorn coral, which they can then copy and paste right onto the reef. We're going to have a little hammer thing that they can use as well. Now, of course, this is a pretty quick overview of the program. I'm currently developing a complete course, and I'll have that to you in the next few weeks. Actually, I'm going to be going down to Islamorada, Florida, and I'm going to be doing this in real life this spring. So I'm kind of excited about that. That'll be a lot of fun. So this is what required to pull this off. I'd like the ability to use the classroom facilities, preferably at Miller, but it doesn't have to be. Can do it anywhere. Building a functional laboratory. Now, this doesn't have to live at Miller. It can be taken out and displayed when it's class time, and there isn't enough room. We'll just pick it up when the class is done. I'm going to need a coral tree in the water at Miller. Once again, it can be picked up and put down. It's going to be a vendor for the coral pieces. Students are going to get all their coral pieces off of that. And then an area in the water at Miller where I can put a dead reef where the new coral can be affixed to the dead reef by the students. And the reef, of course, can also be removed after the class is over. None of this has to live there. In fact, it can be done anywhere there's water. It doesn't even have to be at Miller. Give me any place with water, and I can do it just about anywhere. A shallow dive is just as good with this as a deep dive. It doesn't have to be in deep water. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. And if you'd like to know more about this process, I'll leave a link to one of the videos that you're seeing here in the description. Thanks, Sophie, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.